Welcome to Ask the Expert on Contingent Workforce Strategies LinkedIn group. I'm Jeff Nugent, and I've got a really cool topic today, like one that is super, super important, not only in our industry, but I think for humanity at this point in time. And so I've got a really cool guest, a very close friend of mine, and a, amazing person that everyone knows in the contingent workforce industry. And so the topic of today is the need for community in the contingent workforce ecosystem. And I have none other than the community builder, the event specialist, the Tierra Awards king, Ray Culver, to help with this topic. And why he's an expert in the space is he knows our industry cold. He's worked for MSPs, suppliers. He knows the enterprise buyer community incredibly well and has been over the last number of years building ecosystems and community within our industry. And so, Ray, thank you so much for joining me today and talking about it's a really important topic. I think it's with the division we have in all sorts of situations, a tougher economy, the need for community and support and trust in the ecosystems is really important. And community, having a sense of community builds that trust. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on for the conversation. I will drop your check in the mail for that extremely nice opening comment. So yeah, thanks for having me on. It's gonna be fun.
So, community. Let's
Yep.
talk about a definition of community and why this topic is so important, why it matters so much now.
I think community, when I think of community, I think of either like-minded people or people who are within the same, let's say the same job function or that type of thing, who can come together. I think for me personally, a community is somewhere where you feel safe. It's a safe space. It's a safe space to be vulnerable. So, I mean, to be a safe space doesn't mean you're not going to have debate and even heated debate, but it's like, you know what, we can come, we can disagree, we can debate, we can, get a bit heated, but we're going to walk away and still be like, you know what, I respect the hell out of you. You respect me. I respect your position. You respect mine. And hopefully, even if we didn't change each other's mind, we learn something from each other and we'll start to think about something a little bit different. And to your point in the opening, given the world we do live in today, and we won't go down any rabbit holes with that,
No.
but I think we do need for everybody to, be more open-minded and listen to each other and understand where everybody's coming from on different topics.
And support each other,
100%. Again,
right?
I don't have to agree with me 100%, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to support you, but because you're a good person and that type of thing. So yeah, supporting each other.
No, it's so cool. So, when we look at, and usually I follow a similar format, and thinking about building a sense of community and or community where you have that safe space to talk with your partners. Um, and, when we look at our ecosystem, you have buyers, you have suppliers, you have the talent, you
Mhm.
have different types of partners within the supply chain when you think about it. When we call it an ecosystem, has you have the managed service companies,
Yeah.
you have a VMS and technology player platform, you've got your supply community, um, and you've got partners that fit in and plug in different ways, shapes, or forms. And so it's really interesting when we talk of an ecosystem. What are some of the benefits to the different stakeholders in that ecosystem of building a community amongst each other,
Yeah.
or certain components of the ecosystem that build community with each other, etc.?
Yeah. I mean, thinking about it from if you look to build a community with your peers. So let's say I am a contingent workforce program owner within an in-house within an organization. To have a community or a group of peers who are also in like-minded positions that I can talk to about things that are happening in my program, things that are happening in their program, things that are happening in the space, and just really have a very open and honest conversation. I think that's one type of community. I think the second type is building a community where you bring together, we'll keep picking on CW program owners, you bring together the program owners with suppliers,
Yeah.
with solution partners. I think that's where you do have to have, you need community members who have a significant level of respect and you're not going to take advantage of it. You know what I mean? Like, this
Yeah.
is not necessarily a sales opportunity. This is an opportunity to come together and talk about what's happening in the space, talk about how each of you have a different leg to the stool and how each is equally as important. So I think those are the two different types of communities. One is peer to peer. So it's like, I am with the people who do what I do. And the second is a community where everyone who makes up that ecosystem comes together to have a conversation about how do we make this as a whole a better place and how do we overcome the issues that we're having, whether it is gaps in technology, whether it is talent shortages, whether it is the whole skills-based conversation, how should we as an industry be thinking about this and solving for it?
Yeah, it's interesting because some of the best programs I've ever either been in as a supplier, right? Or gotten feedback from people around success and maturity
Yeah,
and all of those success metrics. Generally, they've brought the ecosystems together, right, to talk. And that's often not easy because you
right.
nailed it. Sometimes the supply side is salesy
Yeah,
and they're have their perspective and not able to easily communicate their needs and objectives in an intellectual and non-salesy manner so that the buy side who has their objectives and needs and wants, they need to also say that and then come together and then try to
yeah,
fulfill each other's needs in order to move forward. And so I think those programs that have been able to successfully bring people together and discuss it generally work out those issues
yeah,
and find a good balance and move forward quickly and then builds trust, right?
yeah.
To that, hey, I'm being paid fairly as a supplier. I'm going to find you the best people at the right time when you need them. And I'm the buyer. I'm going to treat you fairly. I'm going to pay you ideally quicker
Right.
instead of dragging it out 90, 60, 90, 120 days.
And
Um,
then on time.
yeah, and
Right.
I'm going to treat the workers that you bring to me with respect, and so that that doesn't cause issues in the assignments, etc. And so I
Yeah,
think it's very interesting when you bring together the ecosystem. That's cool. The other side you mentioned is the peers, right? And so there's the program side, but I think even on the vendor side, coming together even though you would call it competitive in a lot of cases, right? Coming together to talk about shared issues of industries, etc., often makes things, better for everyone in the long run.
yeah. I would say two things, and this is coming from someone who, and I freely admit that I'm turning into an old man. So I've earned that status. 30 years of doing this, I have earned that status. There is no, you can call it competition, call it whatever you want to call it. No one has a lock on this. So to think that you're going to come into a room with your peers, unless you're going to talk about pricing, which most of the time you know what pricing is because it's a rate sheet. Unless you're going to talk about something, there is no secret sauce.
No.
So I mean that to me, when someone says that to me, when a leader says that to me or an owner founder, it's like, you know what? That is just such bullshit. And I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't say that, but that is not, it's not true. You need to come together and need to talk about how to make
Yeah.
this a better space because, and I'll get on my soapbox, we as an industry have allowed like the pricing component. We've allowed pricing to be drugged so far down because there's always a supplier who will take it. That needs to stop.
Yeah.
And that's where we come together as a group of suppliers and talk about, how can we not do that and how can we start to lift the pricing back up? But those are
And
conversations
be
that should be
sustainable
had.
because some of
Yeah,
these, yes, you're going to offer, a loss leader type deal to
yeah,
win business, but it tends not to be sustainable often. So it's a competitive industry,
Yeah.
which we
There's a difference
understand, but
between
it's not
competitive
great.
and,
Yeah.
in the dirt. I mean, there's a difference between being very competitive and making it to where, you're maybe making pennies on the dollar. There's a
Well, it's just
difference.
not sustainable. And so then the
No.
service drops or a compliance issue comes up.
Yeah.
And that's where, it doesn't help anybody in overall, either the clients or the vendors that have to chase that down to the bottom, right?
Yeah.
That situation. Yeah, it is interesting the benefits of bringing people together, not in an inclusion manner, but in a manner to think about best practices and
Yeah.
help each other out. And the industry, right? Because there's outside forces, be it, government regulations, there's the talent community, that may not understand the industry and have a different impression of the value that happens day to day, right?
Yeah.
And so working together as peers, I
Yeah.
think allows us to get messaging correct,
Yeah.
um, operating models similar, and best practices elevated. And
Yeah.
so what's the old adage? There's enough business and all boats
Yeah.
will float up,
Rising tide
rise
leads
with the
lifts
tide.
all ships.
Yeah,
And I do agree.
probably
I think
killed that analogy, but anyways, it
there's
it
enough
it
business out there.
yeah, there's enough business. Let's make because if not, and we're not working it in collaboration in the ecosystem, and the industry gets a bad name, the tides will shrink, and they'll
Yeah.
find alternative ways to find resources. And so
Yeah.
it's really important that work together on things. And that's one example as an industry. But I think having community also acts as a support group,
Absolutely.
right? To
Yeah.
benchmark yourself against and hold each other accountable. It's been amazing um, that over the years that I've been able to have peer groups or a community where you meet quarterly or monthly or something like that, and you help each other out with the topics because somebody has done something before or had experience with that topic, and they can share their best practice back and forth. And then it also holds you accountable, right?
Yeah.
Because your peers in the community are seeing, hey, I said I was going to do that. And then the next time you meet them, they're going to ask you probably, hey, did
Yeah.
you do that or not? And why? And so I think it's interesting. There's two sides of it from a benefits perspective.
And when you look at like the communities or groups from let's say a leadership perspective, you always hear that when you get to the very top levels, it becomes very lonely because you really have no one you can talk to unless you speak to maybe your spouse or friends. But to be able to have that community where, let's say CEOs, it is a group of CEOs who they can come together, they can talk about things that are happening in the business because the other you get what you're talking about, and it's a place to really be able to, again, be vulnerable. I say that and really talk about things that are happening within the business.
Yeah.
Um, so you find that sense of community not only within, you know, groups of folks, but also at those most senior levels where they're coming, I think, together for different reasons
Yeah.
because it's just you're needing something different at the different levels of the community.
Well, it's been interesting. I've also seen opportunities, right,
Yeah.
that come
Oh
out
yeah.
of them. And
Yeah.
we talk about competition. I've often used the word co-opetition, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the EOR game, that was my background. To be able to have trust with other either staffing agencies, EORs that had either different services, like be able to EOR or employ different types of workers that we may not have been able to, or geographies, having that peer group and that sense of community and that trust between your quote unquote competitors
Yeah.
allowed you to make a phone call and say, hey, I got somebody in, Singapore. We don't have that footprint. I know you mentioned you have a Singapore office. Hey, in the last meeting or community event, can you help us out here? and it works both ways, right? So
I-
there's lots of opportunities. Once again, I think it helps if we help each other out. But you got to learn, and by coming together consistently and having conversations and building trust between
Yeah,
partners is key.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And um, I think you're seeing more and more communities and that type of thing come into the market. You know what I mean? You're seeing um, some are paid and then some are not, some are. So I think that's also something that you're seeing. There is um, a monetization of community happening in the market, and that's cool. I mean, that's good. Um, but that's you're seeing these two different paths, the
Yeah.
ones that cost and the ones that don't.
And I think there is a need to understand that there is a cost of
Yeah.
coordinating communities,
Yes.
right? And if you're not paying for them, you I've always said this, if you're not paying for something, you probably are the product, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so it's interesting the 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 need for a professional coordination and facilitation of these communities because it just doesn't happen out of thin air. It takes work
Somebody's got to put it together. Yeah.
fit it all together
Yeah.
and spend the time. And if we're all working hard in our day-to-day job,
Yeah.
doing this on the side takes a lot of effort and distraction from your day-to-day job. And
Yeah.
so, there is a cost to it. And if you aren't paying, you potentially are the product. And that's where you see the different commercialization models of
Yeah.
it, either sponsorship or vendors
Yeah.
putting on their own event, etc., to bring people together. And you have to pick and choose what you want to be part of, right?
100%.
Um, and from a buyer perspective, we talked about the best programs. You will also find the best vendors. You'll find um, all sorts of benefits in being part of an ecosystem and not
Yeah.
only amongst yourself either. I've found buyers only talking to other buyers and not
Mhm.
having feedback from the vendor
Right.
community.
Input. Yeah.
It sometimes is yeah, takes them down a path of pink sky or
Yeah.
not non-reality um, often, but also understanding that the supply community sometimes can be aggressive and not have best interest in mind. You got to really build a community where it's a safe space, like you've said
Yeah.
in the beginning. So, getting on to like we've talked a ton about value and the benefits, but some of the challenges of getting community together. We've talked about it a little bit too, trust and understanding of is this a safe space? Am I being sold to during this time? Like different things like that. Is in co-opetition versus competition. What are some of these challenges? I kind of laid this up with this intro of this question, but
Yeah.
challenges and barriers of bringing it together. And I guess there's a financial barrier
Yeah.
often too, because it takes effort to bring community together.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, a couple of things that jump out is to build community, you have to be able to show whoever you're trying to bring into it the value to create stickiness,
Mhm.
to make them, to your point, want to come back and to make them want to be a part of the conversation. Um, so that's the biggest thing that I've seen and I ran into as we're building out the different communities here in the US and around the world is making sure that whoever's coming to the different events or the member meetings or whatever, that they're walking away with significant value.
Yeah.
They're walking away two things. One is having met other people, peers that they did not know. That's a value. The second is walking away either having learned something or having, heard something or talked about something that makes them think differently.
Yeah.
So you'll, for me, open up just about any event that I host to say the two things that I want you to do tonight or today or whatever is meet new people and learn something. If you do those two things, you'll walk away and I will have done my job. Period.
You tell them to
Because
turn off their phone too.
they'll want to come back next time.
Tell them to turn off their phone and you might learn something and listen and meet somebody.
Probably. stop looking down at your phone. Um, but yeah, to me, that's a big thing. Schedules are crazy these days. You know what I mean? Trying to find time and trying to figure out what is the right mix of, you know, in person and virtual and that type of thing. And if it's in person, should it be in the evening? Should it be a happy hour? Just everybody's so busy these days.
Yeah.
And everybody, or not everybody, a lot of people are working from home. So that also creates a whole nother thing you have to think about because not everybody's in the city center. Now people are in the suburbs. So if you're asking them to come into downtown, it's not like it used to be.
Yeah.
So you have to think about all these different things to be able to get people together.
Yeah, it is. There's the logistics,
Yeah,
there's a structure that you have to follow that makes sure that value is created, right?
yeah,
And the collaboration happens and the learnings happen, right?
yeah,
Um, and then t time is always
yeah.
like, how long should this be? Because if it's too short but convenient, they aren't getting the value, right?
Right,
And the aha moments and the networking with the people that they want to network in the future with because they know that person's got knowledge or experience that they're going to need at some point in time. Um, but too long isn't convenient, right? So
right.
what's the balance there as well? So
And if
it's
it's
it's interesting.
virtual,
Yeah.
and if it's a virtual type meeting, you have to make sure that you keep the numbers in line to where everybody can, really get engaged and have a speaking. So again, there's just so many things to think about to make sure that everybody is feeling heard, learning, and finding value in whatever it is that you're trying to put together.
No, very cool.
Yeah.
In terms of some of the best practices, right? And we talked about it in overcoming some of these challenges of time constraints, the competitive event, like competitive dynamics,
Yeah.
right? Maybe dissuade people from being very vulnerable and open in the conversation, time, logistics, all of that kind of stuff. What do you suggest as some of the best practices that you've seen? Um, yes, you're growing some of the groups that you're involved with bigger now, but how did you start? And what are some of the dynamics that have really set the stage or foundation for success?
I mean, like when we started our US staffing leader, the member community, um, I went to a group of folks who, I knew, and I knew that they would understand what I was trying to build and said, hey, would love to have you come along as a founding member. And what I'm going to ask of you, though, is that you kind of help me build a plane and you help me to understand what's working, what's not working. Do the timings work? Are you getting, what you need from this? Are you learning? So it was like I had kind of this group of founders who would tell me this is good, this is bad. So it's like we've taken it and we kind of perfected it as we went. I think that's important is to have people who you trust, who will kind of give you honest feedback on, hey, this is great or hey, this sucks. And you should consider tweaking it. Um, I also think if you're going to start a net new community, look and see, does it already exist? You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like, is it already out there? Um, and if it is, can I just join into that? Or am I looking to create a community and monetize it, and make it more of a long-term thing where I'm going to potentially make a career off of this, which again, that's great. But just kind of picking your path as to which way you want to go. There are a lot of communities and a lot of member groups out there. So chances are it already exists. So just decide, why are you doing this? Um, and then, look for the like-mindedness, but also, test a couple of them and see where you feel comfortable. Because it goes back to what we talked about in the very beginning. You want to go into a group where you feel comfortable and you feel like you can kind of let that guard down and really get the full benefit of being a part of that community. And that's a very important piece of it.
Yeah. And consistency, I think, right? That consistency of of the time spent. So, we've gotten to know each other over the years, not only through conversations, but we were on the conference circuit together and we
Yeah,
met and got to know each other and met. And then, that consistency, Like a lot of these conferences are like high school reunions. A lot of the times
Oh
people
yeah.
talk about them as that. And I think that consistency over time of seeing the same people talking about similar issues or what's trending next and helping each other out, I think that consistency is really important and genuine intent, right, of people, I think is
Yeah.
really important too. And that comes out very quickly in the
Oh
conversation,
yeah.
right?
Very
Um,
much. Yeah. Yeah, community is important. I think in today's, you opened up with it. In the world we live in today, I think it's even more important. I think having people who you feel like you can talk to and you can talk about the good and the bad and the successes and the not successes and how do you overcome those and what have they done and that type of thing um, is so important. And you see so many of the folks who maybe over the last couple of years they left their job or their jobs left them. And when we talk, it's like lean into your network. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like lean into your community. And like that's what I think is so important to build that network and build that community to where when you if you ever do need that, that's a
Yeah.
very strong piece of
Well,
where you
and I
can.
think in our industry, given all the moving parts,
Yeah,
it's actually a competitive advantage,
yeah,
right? Because it's
100%.
not like every program's the same. And so you're going to need at some point to help here. And the more trust that has been built by having people in a community that you trust, or, you know, oh, I need a vendor to do this. If your trusted circle says, oh, try this person, guess what's going to happen? That referral is going to be brought into the program based on the
100%.
circle of trust in
Yeah,
that community we've built. And I've said this and heard it so often that although we have grown to be a very big industry in the staffing and the contingent workforce management space with billions and trillions of dollars and millions of people coming through our programs, it's very small
it is.
and it's referral based and trust based. So the clients, if you're smart about things, will often ask, "Hey, have you worked with these vendors together in the
Oh yeah,
past?" So the MSP, the EOR, the VMS, some of the key suppliers, different. Have you worked with them or do you know them? Because when things go awry in a custom model or there's need for support, the ability to then text the person at 10 at night and
yeah,
get the job done so that the manager meeting in the morning is successful and smooth. That is this unhidden sense of trust and community between partners that is so important because it's not an easy
yeah,
game that we play and business that we're in, right? So I think it really drives better outcomes
yeah, 100%.
for the clients at the end of the day by making sure there is a sense of community in your program and all the suppliers you're utilizing, right?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. We could talk about this forever, Jeff.
I know, but we are on the hour and I know you're a busy man, Ray, and I
You're the
can't
best man.
thank you enough for taking the time to talk about this. And I love that you brought this up as a topic because it is something that is so important. Find your community, find your people, be active in growing community and trust amongst peers.
And don't be afraid to build a community. Again, I mean, if that's what you want, and that's don't be afraid to step out there because there are some incredible voices these days that have built communities. Don't be afraid to do that because I mean, there's room within
It's
the
just not the
space.
cool kids, right? Even though
Mhm.
they are cool kids, you can join in. We're all kind of geeky in our own way. So
Absolutely, 100%. So,
awesome.
thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ray. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.